Hello, beautiful people. This is Robbie, your host of the podcast, Be True to You. So happy to have you here. And I'm so excited to have my next guest, Tsawaysia. And we are going to have a very interesting discussion about the important work that she does in the community. And the podcast, Be True to You, is based on the premise of sharing experience, strength, and hope. And I'm also, seeing the importance of shining the light on people's wisdom and the work that they're doing. And so I enjoy sharing people's successes. And so welcome, Tsawaysia. And if you want to do a self-introduction, that would be great.
Awesome. Good afternoon. I want to thank you, Robbie, for inviting me as part of your circle here today. So my ancestral name is Tsawaysia, and I also carry Spukwus, which means bald eagle. I had the honors of receiving my ancestral name in 1991, along with my 5 brothers, my 1 sister, and my 2 cousins. My dad thought it was time for us to receive our name, so I carry my dad's mom's name. I never met my grandmother because she passed away even before I was born, but I know I have the teachings and the knowledge of carrying the good work that my grandmother did prior to me being born. So in other words, I'm carrying her name in a good way. I also carry Spukwus, which means bald eagle. I was born and raised here in Squamish in a village called Stopmas, and Stopmas means shelter. And what shelters us is the second biggest monolith granite rock in the world, and we all know that as the chief. There are many legends that revolve around that rock. That rock has 3 peaks, and one of the peaks has the 2-headed sea serpent. The middle peak has Kokole, the cannibal woman, and how the chief actually came to be, because he's actually laying on his back. The first peak, you can see his distinguished chin. The second peaks from his shoulders to his hips, and the third peaks from his hips, going right into what we call Valley Cliff. And his wife's on the other side of the west side of Squamish River. So that's the other legend. So thank you.
Awesome. I appreciate you sharing that because every time we drive through Squamish, it's just so awe-inspiring when you drive by. And I love learning more and more about the chief. And every time I look at it, I see something different. So thank you for sharing that. And so I'm so glad that you agreed to spend a little bit of time here on this podcast. Thinking back, I believe I met you when I was working in a nonprofit in Vancouver. And you had generously come to support our elders program in drum making. So you do a lot of very arts and crafts oriented workshops and the amazing teachings that you share throughout all of that. Do you want to talk a little bit about how your business started and the things that you're doing?
So I was in education for over 20 years. I was a director of education for our nation for 7 years. So I implemented language and culture not only in our community, but abroad, and I did it with School District 48. I was a director of education for Tsawaysia First Nation for 5 years. So again, implement language and culture. So I make them feel good of who they are and where they come from. And what I did as an educator, director, I invited the teachers to the community. And it was more like a relaxed, like a parent teacher. So the parents get to meet the teachers and vice versa. And I remember we did it here at Totem Hall, and I did one when I was with Tsawaysia First Nation. In Tsawaysia First Nation, we had over 90% turnout of all of their parents show up at the parent teacher. So at first we invited the teachers to their community. We do our drumming, we do our singing, we do our feasting, we do our mingling, you do all that. And then after that, I would tell the parents, okay, now parents, we invited them to ours. Now it's your turn to go to the kids' school. So I usually do it traditional, and we start off with a circle. And that it's like a talking circle, the teachings of the circle, there's no beginning and there's no end. And everyone in that circle, they're treated equally because the Creator has given each and every one of us a gift, and it's not a gift unless we share it. So they had the opportunity, the teachers had an opportunity to share, and, quite a few of the teachers cried, but they were crying because their hearts were so happy to see parents from the village going to their school for the very first time. They couldn't believe, because they never, especially having over a 90% turnout at the, going to the public school system, because it was really hard for the parents, because they either are the products, or they went to residential school. So that ripple effect. So, it's really good. Like I say, going back to the teaching, be proud of who we are and where we come from. The teachings of the cedar tree teaches us to stand tall, be proud of who we are. The branches on that tree teaches us to reach out, because we all don't know the answers. And underneath that tree are the roots, and that represents our family. The more we know about our family roots, the stronger person we are going to be. Like myself, I have the Squamish Nation blood in me, and I also have the Kwakwaka'wakw blood in me. And that can even go as far as back to the West Coast, my great grandparents. So we all have our own individuality. We all have, different bloodlines. Like I say, just be proud of who we are and where we come from. So I worked education, and then I went to, I voluntarily left Tsawaysia First Nation, and then I went to work in the downtown east side. And
it's a tough area.
Yeah, I threw a whole bunch of resumes all over the place. And I get a phone call from this lady, and she goes, "Oh, so Alice, you applied for this job." And then I goes, "What job was this again?" Oh, she got really mad at me. She says, "What do you mean? How could you not know?" And I says, "Well, excuse me. I threw my resumes like all over the place." And she goes, "Oh, okay." So she explained, what company they work for, and I told them what I did in education. I implement a lot of language and culture. I build bridges, with the community, and the villagers. So, anyways, I got hired on the spot, and I work for them. So same thing, I implement a lot of language and culture into the employment system there. And it was awesome working there, because we worked with borderline homeless people. And it was a really eye opener for me. They showed instant gratitude for the work that we provided. Things that we take for granted, like a hairbrush, a toothbrush, dress clothes just to go to work.
Yeah, the basic needs.
Yeah, or even like work boots, or flag, the bright flags, jackets and stuff. So what we do is we try to remove as many barriers as we can, make it easier for them to find a job. But at the same time, not only, as the company, they teach, how to buff up your resume. We do mock interviews. So what we did was we combined it and called it a cultural week. So I nabbed and grabbed all of the Indigenous people. They would come, and again, we do the circle, and we share who they are, where they come from. And then we do the drumming and the singing. And then, we did that every morning and every afternoon before we closed. So we had those teachings in there. And in between, like I say, we taught them how to do their resume, and, they did their mock interviews. And then at the last day, I says, "You know what? Yes, I'm Squamish Nation member. Yes, I'm the one that's here facilitating. But when we're having a potlatch on day 5, on the last day of the cultural week, you guys bring in your food from your nation. You dress in your regalia. You're showcasing who you are and where you come from." So it was awesome. We did a lot of drumming, we did a lot of singing, we did a lot of dancing, and it was just so happy. And I remember even when I worked in the downtown east side, I did a drum making workshop, and we were sponsored by the provincial government. So these are the my clients were on income assistance. So in other words, they are under the provincial government, right? So I invited them to the drum making workshop, but I didn't introduce them as,
The
they were
government.
social services, yeah. And
Mm,
so they just joined in, everyone just joined in, and then we did the process of, the welcome circle, the drumming, the singing. When we do the closing, we always get them to share how did they feel making the drum. And I just love it because, when they're holding that eagle feather, it really opens up their heart. And then they share. And then after it was all over, and then I went to the ministry and I told them, I said, you know what? Our way of living is a whole lot, how can I say it, have more meaning than, sitting, laying on the couch, talking to a psychologist or, stuff like that, right?
mm,
It says we
mhm.
have our ways, our every nation has their own ways. Some are talking the talking stick, or the feather, or some have, they smudge. There are a lot of different ways of healing with the talking circle.
Mhm. There's so many benefits.
Yeah, and then after the 5 years, and then I started doing my own business because I says, okay, time for a change in my life. So I was living up here in Squamish, and then I go, now what am I going to do? So I started, because I was doing a lot of drum making workshops, at work. So I says, oh, that's what I'll do. So I hit all the museum. I hit Squamish Little Cultural Center. I did the Port Moody Museum. I did the Sunshine Coast Museum. I did the Britannia Beach. Like, the list goes on. I phoned him up and says, oh, can I do a drum making workshop at your museum? He says, oh, absolutely. So we worked together. They helped with the
Beautiful.
marketing. I did my marketing, and I would get people, and then not only I did it in the museums, but I did it in my own home. So I started off small.
Mhm.
I probably did maybe a drum making workshop once a month, because that's when I gives me time to market from one place to another. And then
Mhm.
my daughter was 5 years old. She's now 22. So she come
Wow.
home. She had a wool weaving. She did a wool weaving, and I goes, what? My daughter can weave before me. So okay, I want to learn how to wool weave. So that opened me up. So I got my mom, she taught me how to, to twine, to warp, and to weave. So anyways, I do that. So now I know. And so now I'm going to open up my business a little bit more. And so I'm going to offer wool weaving. So I start doing wool weaving workshops. And then
Nice.
next thing you know, I was doing cedar. I think it was 2000 was the first time I learned how to harvest cedar. So once I learned how to do that, and then we got to let it cure for a year. But guess what? I used to hire someone to thin out the cedar for me. And then I said, well, you know what? This is my business, so I should learn how to do it. So everything that I do with my business, I do what I call trial and error. It's not like I'm going to get 100% right every time. I learn off my mistakes. I make a mistake, I learn from it, and I move on. So, anyways,
Mhm.
I start spinning out my own cedar. So I start doing cedar headbands. I did cedar wristbands. I did cedar rope. I did cedar baskets. Never managed to get to cedar hat workshop yet. But there was a lot of cedar, and then I would do it in one school, and that teacher would tell another teacher. So I end up doing, a whole bunch of cedar workshops or drum making workshops or whatever in that school, and that school would tell another school. So,
Mm.
it was all word of mouth.
Word of mouth. Yeah. That's
Yeah.
special and so smart. It's your work speaking for itself, and you have this natural energy that I believe people are so drawn to you, and people not wanting to see you go and move on and wanting to keep you in their employ, and your ability to bring people together. I think that's amazing. And that sense of pride that you helped instill in the people in East Vancouver, like that is so special. And, I'm so glad that you're able to do that for the people in the East Side, downtown East Side, because it takes a certain person to work in that area, which can be kind of hardcore sometimes. But it looks like you relied so much on the cultural piece, and it automatically draws everybody together. It's so special.
Yeah, I remember one guy comes in and he had two garbage bags. And so I'm here at my desk and he come walk towards me and he just grabbed those two garbage bags and he just threw it at me. I know he wasn't mad at me. He was just angry. So he threw it at me and he says, "This is all I got to my name." And I says, "Well, you know what?" I says, "This is a brand new day." Oh no, he got through saying that his landlord kicked him out. He stole everything in his apartment. That's all he had to himself.
Mm.
That was it, nothing else. And I says, "Well, you know what? This is a brand new day." I says, "I'm going to give you resumes. I'm going to print out resumes for me. I'm going to go walk out and distribute your resume. I'm going to email your resumes. I'm going to fax your resumes. We're just going to go to town. We're just going to go, go, go." The next morning he came. Big difference. He had a big, huge smile on his face. His body's language was like, "Oh, yes, I'm so excited." And he goes, "Guess what, Alice?" He goes, "I got a job." And then I said, "Oh, good for you." I says, so what I loved about working at that company, GT Hiring Solutions, whenever someone got a job, we would ring the bell. When we
Mm.
ring the bell, everybody in the whole office would drop everything and they hoot and they holler and they clap and they whistle, woo! And then so it totally builds up their self-esteem,
For
you know.
sure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
That's amazing. So you went through the whole hustle and bustle and cold calling people and getting yourself out there. And I love that the word of mouth, like I totally don't doubt that. I think that's how I found you. Word of mouth. But your work has taken you on travels to different places. You want to speak to that a little bit and the places that you've been able to go to?
Yeah, so I actually submitted in my abstract to a conference in Hawaii. I chose Hawaii because or Oahu. I wanted to go to Oahu. And it was education, no, it was an arts and humanities conference. So I submitted in my abstract and I got accepted and I goes, yes. So I went there. I did 1 day conference and the rest, probably 7 or 8 days, I was a tourist, but I just loved it, had the opportunity. And it was a big difference because weather-wise, I couldn't imagine making a drum in the really warm weather. But
Mm.
because the it dries faster, right? Because it's so hot there. And then
Mm.
the next following year, I did a drum making work. I put in the abstract, and this one was the first annual education conference in Chicago. So I went to Chicago
Mm.
and I submitted in for poster series presentation. So what I did, I went there, I brought my drum, wore my regalia, I did a PowerPoint, and where my conference was, my room that I was kind of like in between, oh, how can I say it? It was like a foyer, I guess, but it had a kind of like a sliding door. And anyways, I was in that room and I must have had about, I don't know, 25 or 30 people in my workshop. And as soon as I brought my drum out and I start drumming and singing and I got them to play Slahel, a whole bunch of people come from this side, whole bunch of people come from this side. Not only were they were peeking in because there were so many people were trying to peek in, so people start sneaking in. They were sneaking in the room and they're all like the walls and everything. They were just so excited because this conference represents over 80 countries worldwide. And
Wow.
coordinator says, "Oh, Alice, we want you back next year." They were so excited. So I really enjoyed myself in Chicago. And then
Mhm, the Windy City.
And then
Chicago's fun.
yeah, I got a phone call from this gentleman, and his name was Eddie. He goes, I would love for you to do a drum making workshop in New York. And I go, New York? I go, yes. I says, I was so excited. And then I told my mom, she goes, I'm worried for you. I'm scared. I don't want you to go there by yourself. You don't even know,
Oh.
how moms are, right? And I went ahead with it anyways, because it was a Native American Indian church that hired
Mm.
me to do a drum making workshop there. So when I was there, I told him, I says, well, you know what? I would love to honor the land that I am on. Yes, I know the Mohawks live there, but I don't know who else. So he did his homework and he gave me a list of all the nations that are in New York City, the present New York City now. So
Mm.
I did the workshop in Lower Manhattan. So I got to see
Mm.
where the Twin Towers would have been,
Wow.
the memorial, and like you say, I'm there to do the workshop, but then I tourist for about 8 or 9 days. So I just love it.
Oh, wow.
So this
You took a
happened, huh?
big bite out of the big apple.
Oh yeah. This happened before, the big pandemic, but
Mm.
he said, I'm going to give your name to New York. I'm going to give your name to Toronto. I'm going to give your name to LA. Like he was going to go, and I goes, yes, I was just so excited. And then
Mm.
I even got asked to go to Tokyo to do a plant workshop. But
Oh,
that's when it
wow.
just happened. It just started. And I says,
Mm.
no, I thank you. I'm good. Oh, no, we would love you to come. No, I'm good. No, thank you. You know what I mean? I just love, and then the same with the concept with the schools, like, my first drum making workshop that I did, over 100 drums, was in Bowen Island. And
Wow.
Bowen Island is part of West Vancouver. So they told another principal, so that principal at uh, Eagle, I can't remember their, anyways, that school in Horseshoe Bay, they did
Mm.
240 drums. And then Vancouver heard that I was doing it. So the most drums I made was 488 drums, and we did it in 2 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. That's a lot of supplies to get together.
But anyways, drums, you got to punch the holes, right? So I did it
Hmm.
for the 100, I did it for the 200, but come to the 400, I had to learn to hire people to help me, because
Hmm.
when I did the 100 and the 200 and I went to the doctor with my elbows, I just more or less got the tennis elbow, right? Just
Oh, gee.
then my doctor says, Alice, you gotta rest. I know you're not gonna rest, but you rest. So I learned to hire. So I hire my cousin, my cousin Art, and I hired, I got my daughter and my son to help out, help punch the holes.
Mm.
Yeah.
Hmm. That's a lot of work, my goodness. And, it makes me happy. I think I was telling you way back when in 2010 Olympics in Vancouver, when they started to acknowledge the three host nations and also up past Whistler and Lillooet. And I thought that was amazing, like that those times in history that you remember and the importance of having that land acknowledgement. I'm glad you pursued that when you went to New York so that you can honor the people of the lands who you're on, because as a guest there, it's protocol, right? And so it's an opportunity. You were probably teaching the host of that place to do that. That's amazing. And when you think about the 2010 Olympics, and I see your natural ability for bringing people together, do you think that the 2010 Olympics helped kind of pave the way and reshape the way events are happening in Vancouver now? Because I know you're well known for doing openings for many meetings and conferences over in Vancouver.
Yeah.
Do you think that?
Yeah, I think that's good, because it not only involves, Squamish, Tsleil-Waututh, and Musqueam and Lillooet, right? But, they are the ones that were part of the, my phone's ringing. Um, uh, yeah, because I remember, because I know I was doing it prior to 2010. Because when, like I say, I was a director of education. I believe I started in 1991, and then when
Mm.
1994 is when I went on my first canoe journey. And so that's where I
Mhm.
learned a lot of protocol, you know. So when we go from one village to another, like if we went from Squamish, like, and when I went in 1994, we went from North Vancouver to Squamish to Seashell to Sliammon. We pulled all the ways across to Campbell River and we pulled all the ways down to Victoria. So, you know, the protocol, the teachings there, you know, we acknowledge, the village that we are going on. And the first words, we don't even step on land yet. You know, we're in the canoe and then we say, we come in peace. Those are the first words that come out. And then we say, do we have permission to come ashore? And then, you know, it's either the chief or the elders or the community or whoever that are there that are greeting us. And then so in return, our whole canoe, the one people that are in the canoe, we would drum and sing and we are thanking them.
Mm.
You know, so, you know, that's proper protocol. And so we've been doing that because first canoe journey the Squamish Nation did was in 1993 when they pulled from Squamish always up to Bella Bella. And my brother Rick and Dale were on that canoe journey. I know my brother Dale was bugging me and bugging me to go in 1993. I did chicken, but 1994 I finally said, I goes, yes, I'm gonna do it. So I did it.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Good medicine on that
Oh, it's very
canoe.
strong medicine. Yeah, that's what really
Mhm.
opened my eyes, you know, learning more about our culture, right? Yeah.
Mhm.
One mind, one body, and one spirit.
Yeah, and I see how you just put it into practice, and the way that our people live, it's all experiential and you learn by doing. And like you said earlier, learning from a mistake and then you just fix it and do it different the next time. So it is a lot of trial and error. And a lot of that is like I see the importance of stopping the mind from saying stuff like, oh, I'm so stupid, or how could I do it like that? You know what I mean? Like taking care of ourselves in a good way through that process, because it's a learning process that's so important. And, you were mentioning earlier about cultural activities and the power of the feather. And, I've had that experience. I've been so blessed to connect with North Vancouver and Squamish Nation ceremonies, and my family coming to support me in ceremony, and just in tears, like just no words, because it's all feelings and it's all in the heart. And I can imagine, the length of time it took for you to go on the canoe journey between all of those places on the mainland to the island and back. Like what good medicine that is, right? For the heart and the spirit.
Yeah. Yeah, because even like when we like, when we come back and then I involved a lot of the elders. So, you know, like I say, I always did talking circles and pass the feather. And then I says, you know what, I'm going to involve the elders. So I remember our elders coordinator back in the day in the early 1990s. She would just drop off the elders at the totem hall where we were, and then she would take off. And then the elders, they, you know, they were kind of, you know, they were kind of nervous. So the elders would, you know, sit and hide in the corner of the totem hall, right? And then I
Mm.
would tell them, you know, we're in the circle and says, you go get your grandma, you go get your uncle, you go get your grandfather, you know, like that. So I got the kids to go get their grandparents to join the circle. And,
Mm.
and so when we passed the feather, and then, you know, some of the elders were so shy that they didn't even touch the feather. They had the person on the right would pass the feather past the elder because the elder didn't want to touch it. So I kept
Mm.
using that concept over and over and over. Next, you know, the elders, they have it and they are there sharing their teaching.
Mm. Mm.
What a big difference, you know what I mean? So it's just a matter of, you know, going back to the teachings of our ancestors, how they did it. You know, those elders, you know, they got it beaten out of them in residential school, right? So they didn't
Mm.
have that,
Mm.
and then,
Mm.
you know, give them that opportunity. So, yeah.
Yeah, persistence, and just honoring them for even taking that next step to hold that feather. I think that's just beautiful, and the magic of our talking circles and what each item means and all of the stories that are behind that. And you had mentioned, with your work, I keep going to the east side, the downtown east side, and you're bringing in the government people and not saying their role or their title. What do you see as the importance of creating that bridge between the non-Indigenous and bringing them into our Indigenous circles? What's the benefits of that?
Knowing that it's a two-way street. You know, when I was 29 years old, I went to my conference in Vancouver. All these First Nations leaders, directors of education, everyone that was there, they were just arguing with each other. They were just at each other's throats. They argued right through lunchtime. And those poor hotel workers, they were so scared. You know, they had their hands behind their back. They were leaning against the wall. They didn't know what to do with their bodies. And yet it took one elder to get up, and he went like this. He grabbed a pen and he shook it and he goes, "This is exactly what the government wants us to do. They want us to argue and fight amongst each other." And everyone went, "Whoa." And then you wouldn't believe how the tension just eased. You can just feel it. I still get goosebumps sharing this story. And so anyways, because, you know, when I share a lot with my mom, and, you know, my mom, you know, she experienced it too, but my mom taught us to build those bridges. And we were taught that bridge is a two-way street. Because, you know, like I say, First Nations, you know, they despise federal government. They despise provincial government. They don't get along with the government because because the experience they went through, you know, with the residential
history. Yeah.
So anyways, my mom taught us to build that street, and that street is a two-way street. So that's why I got the teachers to come to the hall, and then the parents go to the school. Two ways. It's not a one-way street, it's a two-way. So, you know, we got to have that balance, working with each other.
That's so important. And, you know, I'm glad that you still have your mother sharing those teachings with you and to revive all of that. And your grandma now. And so, you know, making sure that your daughter and your children are teaching your grandchildren and carrying that on. And I know the education and culture for the kids and the future generations is really important for you as well.
Yeah.
You want to speak to that?
Can you repeat that again?
Sorry, maybe I'm too far away from the mic. The continuation of the teachings of our culture and our ways of being is so important for the way that you live your life. It's simply your lifestyle, and that's how it is. So making sure that that carries on with your children, and your children are teaching your grandchildren, and the importance of carrying that on for the future generations. What is your hopes with that? What will society look like in 7 years?
I did. I had my two boys. They were following me, you know, when I was in the canoe journey, and, you know, doing a lot of drumming and the singing. But when they got older, they kind of went their own way. But that's okay. And then my daughter, my daughter, you know, even when she was in my tummy, she heard a lot of drumming and singing. So by the time my daughter was 17 months old, she was singing these songs. She knew all the songs. And she was singing ever since she was 17 months old. And then, so every time when I go do a lot of, you know, welcome ceremonies, I brought my daughter with me. And I always remember I had to go to University of British Columbia. And majority of the times, probably 9 out of 10 times, I go to the Longhouse at UBC. But this time I had to go somewhere else at UBC. And I goes, uh-oh. I said, I know where the Longhouse is, but I don't know. So anyways, we got lost. So we're driving. And then I told my daughter, I says, okay, I'm going to back up. I'm going to turn around. I'm going to go back again. I'm going to try to find it. And then I looked up and I saw a bald eagle sitting on the tree. And I told my daughter, I says, Dominique, that's where we got to turn left. We turned left and we found it. And anyways, when we were there, she was probably about, about 3 or 4 years old. And we were drumming and singing, and because I'm standing tall and she's you know, smaller because she's only a little girl. So I went on my knees. I went on one knee and I went to her height so I can drum and sing. What did she do? She copied the exact same thing that I did. So she went on one knee too. And then I was giggling, drumming and singing, but I had that giggle in my mouth, but I still. So because I started my daughter young, and then
Mm.
she started getting the whole group dancing on her own. So I got her to introduce
Mm.
herself. At first, I introduced her. And then as it progresses, I told her, can you say your name? And then maybe the next time, can you say your name and where you're from? I was just teaching her. And now she can get up and she can speak the Squamish language. She can do the protocol all in the Squamish language.
That's
And
amazing.
yeah. So, anyways, we happened to be at Sunshine Coast Museum, and there was probably about 30 people there. We did a wool weaving workshop, and I says, you know what? My daughter wants to sing a song, and she wants to get you guys dancing. And she did, that song, that chicken dance.
Oh yeah.
She was probably about 8 years old or something. I go, yes.
It's so cute. And it's so important to have fun when you're doing things too, right? Like humor is such a huge part of our life, and it just makes such a difference. And yeah, I can tell how you can feel into the energy of a place. And I see your social media pictures, and finding that downtime because I know you're so busy, and you're a wanted woman. And the things that you like to do, like you actually go like right into the river and you're fishing and enjoying the great outdoors in Squamish.
Yeah.
I love your
Oh,
pictures. Yeah, that's
I know I
amazing.
go
So,
out trouting for my uncle. Any trout that I catch, I bring it to uncle because he can no longer go to the river, right? So it's a treat
mm,
for him. And, again,
oh,
sharing our teachings, right? Yeah.
taking care of the elders for sure. That's beautiful. And so, compared to when you first started your business and now, like, how has your approach changed when you reflect back on that? Things that you're doing different?
I remember when I first started, I was the one that was reaching out. But now that the word is going around, I can just sit back and everyone comes to me. So, they
Mm,
say, oh, Alice, I don't even have to go around and look for work. The work comes to me. So again, it's like
mm.
word of mouth. And then that some people book me a year ahead because they know how fast I get booked.
Wow. Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah.
And I'm so happy for you because, when we had a chat earlier, I'm talking about the difference. I totally relate. When you first start your business, you have to do that hustle, and it takes a little while to build those relationships. And it's like now sitting back and, picking and choosing and, taking care of yourself through that because we can't run on an empty cup, right?
Right. Yeah.
That's
What was I going to say now? Um, no, it slipped my tongue.
Mhm. So you have a lot of events coming up. It's the first week of December, and I'm guessing there's a lot of people wanting to make crafts and gifts. And so, is your December jam packed at this point?
Yeah, and then at the museum, I work part-time at the Museum of North Vancouver, and again, I'm the Indigenous cultural programmer. So we implement a lot of Indigenous programs there, or we bring in Indigenous resource people to come to be part, just so they can share. Like we had Dr. Robert Chief Joseph with his book. We had Lee Joseph when she did a book on the indigenous plants.
Mm.
We had Elder Barbara Weiss. She had some books out, and so they get there and they speak to the public. So and it's awesome because again, like we're reaching out, right? So not only we do it with the Squamish Nation, but we do Tsleil-Waututh. Our last Indigenous market we had, it wasn't just Squamish Nation, Tsleil-Waututh Nation. I opened it up to any nations that wanted to be part of it. We have that lady, Tradish Canada. She does traditional jams. She's got
Mm.
like, sage mixed in there. She's got lavender mixed in there. She's got like all these
Wow.
medicines mixed in with the jam. So it has really good medicinal value to it. Uh,
Amazing.
yeah. So always opening, opening up to the community, sharing
Mhm.
who we are and where we come from. Those are the famous lines, the famous words, because
Yes.
everyone has a gift and they can share it.
So true. And like, wow, your gifts are reaching so many people. I find that so amazing. And I find you so inspiring. And, when I started my business, it was so scary. And, just the way you talk, and it's building that empowerment, supporting people to empower themselves. And so, as you know, my podcast is called Be True to You. And so, what do you think is important when you reflect back on yourself as a woman being true to you? What does that mean to you?
That again, like I learned from my mistakes. I always have that concept of understanding the past, knowing the present, and then planning for the future. And we never want anyone to feel bad of what has happened. All we want to do is share awareness, and that's it. We can't tell them how to feel, right?
Mhm.
Everyone chooses. So I think, like even with the TNR, that TNR, like when the Vancouver Canucks acknowledge they're on Squamish Nation, Musqueam and Tsleil-Waututh lands, that's awesome. I love it. I thank them for it. It's
Mm.
always that ripple effect. You're going to grab that pebble and you're going to throw it in a pond, and it's going to move on to the next generation, the next family, the next community, the next country, you name it. Because there's a big
Mhm.
world outside our house, outside our door.
Mhm.
Because even like when continuing, um, I always want to continue and honor my two best teachers in the world is my mom and my dad.
Mm.
You know, our dad taught us the language and culture. Our mom taught us to build the bridge. They taught us to respect. They taught us to love. They taught us a lot of things despite what they went through.
Mhm.
It's really hard, and it was really sad how some of them, when they came out of the residential school, their spiral went down
Mhm.
because they didn't have that support, or they didn't have, the energy. But my mom and dad, they went this way.
Mhm. And
And
it's a tough choice, and you're so blessed that your parents were able to do that for you. And that's like such huge hearted approach to life, and like a big dose of forgiveness, rather than stay stuck, choosing to do something different. And everybody has their experiences. And, I think that's a big job right now, as consultants and people who are going out into the community and working with the families and our people is, teaching them how to turn that spiral and go the other way now. And let it all go. And people get to forgiveness when they're able to, but there is another way, encouraging people to see that other way.
yeah, and you can't
So
get
it's,
it by demanding someone to do it, right? You got to do it in a good way, a healthy way. Two wrongs don't make
yeah.
a right.
Yes, and you're such a good role model for that. It's all about integrity. You're doing what you're asking others to do, and so I see such a wealth of teachings and everything that you're doing and sharing just in this little time that we're talking. And I'd love to have you as a guest in another podcast session down the road. But any final thoughts or closing thoughts that you want to share before we wrap up here?
Um, I think, going back, to respecting Mother Nature. We need to look after the Mother Earth. If we don't look after her, then she won't be able to look after us. There are a lot of things that we take for granted, like the river. The river teaches us to go with the flow. I already talked about the cedar. The bear teaches us to protect. The fish, the salmon teach us about determination and perseverance, because they start off with a little egg, turn to a fry, a little trout, and they're in the river and they go out in the ocean, and every day they got to fight off their predators. And yet they come back every 4 years to continue the life cycle. You know,
Mhm.
there's the wolf and the sea wolf. The sea wolf, we know you guys or other people will know as the killer whale. But what this sea wolf, the killer whale, and the wolf teaches us to work as a team, as a family, and as a unit, as one community.
Mhm.
Um, you know, they're even the raven to us in our legends, they're known as the tricksters, but they don't trick people just so they can benefit. They trick people so the whole community can benefit. You know, like the cougars and the owls, they teach us stealth and to be patient. We need to wait. You know, even the different types of trees, you know, the maple and the vines, you know, they are bendable. So it teaches us we need to be flexible. So there are so many teachings, even to the tiniest little ant. The ant is so small, but it teaches us to pull more than our own weight. There are
Mhm.
times in life, in our relationship or at work or at school, we have to pull our own weight just to make it work. And we don't
Mhm.
need a pat on the back from anyone else because we know we have that beautiful teachings within us. The teachings
Mhm.
are given. So anytime we make our first cedar hat or our drums or wool weaving or salve making or anything like that, we got to give it away. So the
Mhm.
beautiful teachings that, you know, like even like when we have a potlatch doesn't mean of what we have. A potlatch means what we have and what we're going to give away to the community. So it's, you know,
Mhm.
I always share, when I explain to the kids, I says, birthday parties when you invite all your family and friends, and who gets all the presents? You, right? Potlatch different. We invite all our family and friends and we feast them, but we give. You know, that's the teachings of First Nations people. It's reverse because we respect Mother Nature, we respect everything 360 that surrounds us. Yeah.
Yeah, that's so true. And it's great that you're sharing that with the kids so that they can see that from a different perspective and understand that. So, like I said, you have such a wealth of teachings. I raise my hands to you. You're just an inspiration to me. And I thank you for taking this little bit of time to join me on the podcast, Be True to You. And I'd love to have you again another time. And so thank you so much. And I look forward to seeing you again.
Awesome. You're welcome. Thank you, Robbie.
Take care. We'll see you next time.